So you finished your coding bootcamp or you got that computer science degree, congrats! But for many new developers, graduating feel like you're crossing a finish line. But what if I told you it's actually the starting line of a much bigger race? I remember the mix of excitement and dread when I completed my coding education. I was proud, sure, because I completed the entire program myself, but also thinking, now what? Do I really know enough to get a job? Trust me, you're not alone in that feeling. In fact, landing your very first role or project is often a tougher challenge than doing the bootcamp or going through the university itself. And today I want to share what I've learned on my journey after finishing a bootcamp equivalent and break it down from first principles so you know exactly what to do next. So when you finish a bootcamp or a CS program, it's like finishing a tutorial level of a video game. The basics are in your toolkit, but the real game is really just beginning now. I used to think that a diploma or a certificate would be my golden ticket, but the reality here is employers don't really hand out jobs just because you've earned and you've learned the theory, right? They care about what you can do with that knowledge. One survey out of 1,000 employers found that around 86% were confident about hiring coding bootcamp graduates, which is a great news. But here's the catch. They're looking for people who can solve real world problems with those skills. And in other words, your education was literally step one. Now, showing how you can apply it is step two. I did not follow the traditional path after my learning phase. While many of my peers were polishing resumes, I dove into building my own business. So back in 2020, after learning web development, I used HTML, CSS, Vue.js, and React, and a bit of Express.js. I teamed up with a partner to create a coding community, which eventually became Sigma School. I wasn't a seasoned software engineer at Google or Facebook. I was just a fresh grad, just like you, figuring out things so as I went. And this unconventional route taught me a very important lesson, which is that whether you aim for a job or to run your own startup, you must treat graduation not as the end of the learning, but rather the beginning, the start of a new journey. It's like I had just learned how to throw punches, like in the context of boxing, and suddenly now I was in the ring, which is the time to keep practicing and to actually start fighting. So let's break it down to first principles. Why would someone hire a junior developer? At the very most basic level, a company hires you to solve a problem or to fulfill a need. They have software to build, they have bugs to fix, they have products to ship, and they need people who can contribute to that goal. So from a first principles perspective, your mission here is to prove that you can solve meaningful problems. Everything else, your degree, your pedigree, your certifications, or even your past projects, they're really just signals or evidence or proof toward that fundamental point. Now, how do you prove it? Think about the core components required. You need the right skills to build things, right? The ability to learn and to adapt, right? Since tech is always changing, and you're gonna need the right attitude, which is to have teamwork, to have communication skills, and to be a reliable teammate. Interestingly enough, employers today emphasize both hard and soft skills. And in a recent hiring survey that I found, nearly 70% of tech employers said that technical skills were the top priority, but 65% also said that soft skills like teamwork and communication were absolutely crucial. In plain terms, you can be a coding whiz, but if you can't collaborate and you can't communicate, you don't have the basic decency to work professionally, it's going to be tough, right? This is where being humble and personable gives you an edge. Don't be the stereotype of the brilliant but arrogant coder. And I would even argue that if you're in an entry level kind of position, you're often not the brilliant, right? So always be curious, always be coachable, and ask good questions. Remember, no one expects a newbie to know everything, but they do expect you to learn with enthusiasm and to work well with others. All right, so now that you have the basics, it's time to always build stuff. Think of your skills like a muscle. After a bootcamp or after you graduate from a degree, you've built some muscle in a controlled environment. To get stronger, you're gonna have to train consistently in the real world. One of my role models, Peter Levels, has this motto that says, don't wait until you feel ready, just start building right away. It's spot on. I agree with this completely. A lot of new graduates fall into this trap of waiting to feel 100% confident, waiting for the perfect job posting, waiting to master XYZ framework before attempting a real project. I'd say don't wait, right? Start a project today, even a small one. Build a personal website, a simple app for a friend's business, contribute to open source projects, anything that really forces you to apply your skills. Each project is not just practice, it's actually you building up proof to showcase that it's something that you can show in your portfolio and discuss with your employers in an interview, and you can say things like, hey, I've built this. In fact, over half of the employers say a strong portfolio will help new candidates stand out, often as much as a good resume. So let me share a quick personal story. After my coding learning phase, my very first real project was to build a simple web app for a small business. It wasn't fancy, definitely not the next Facebook or the next Netflix, but it solved a real problem for a real user. I even asked the client, who was actually a relative of mine, to pay me a token amount, and they paid me around $200 so I could officially call myself a freelance developer back then, right? But and I could put that on my resume. That small project did two things. The first thing is it boosted my confidence and it turned my CV from a bootcamp graduate or a self-taught learner with some projects into a developer with freelancing project experience, right? See the difference here, because you're actually paid for it. So if you have to create your own experience, volunteer to build websites for a local charity maybe, or to automate a task at your friend's company, not only do you learn a ton by doing, but you also demonstrate initiative, which is a trait that every employer loves. And hey, if you're eyeing big tech and worrying about algorithms and whiteboard interviews, yes, those are real at FANG-like companies, but many entry-level jobs, especially at smaller firms or startups, they care more that you can actually make things work than to solve abstract algorithm puzzles on the whiteboard, right? A solid project that works can sometimes impress more than a half-baked attempt at a lead code hard problem. That's it. It doesn't hurt to brush up on your computer science fundamentals and data structures and algorithms, especially if you lack a CS degree. I encourage you to take a little time to fill any knowledge gaps from the bootcamp. For example, bootcamps often don't cover how things really work under the hood, like how memory or servers operate. One guide for bootcamp graduates pointed out that in just a few days, you can watch YouTube videos or learn up and read up on CS basics to supplement and complement your skills. You don't need a whole second degree, but knowing how, for example, web requests actually hit a server or what a database index is will give you confidence and help you sound like you know your stuff for the interviews. Think of it as adding context to your practical skills. It helps you to connect the dots and to show that you're not just coding by rote memorization, but you actually understand the framework and the ecosystem of software and tech in general. So I want to talk a bit about the daily habits that you should have after a bootcamp, right? It's easy to set a big goal, right? You can say something like, I want to get a software developer job at XYZ company. That's an awesome goal, but goals alone won't carry you there. What will? They are going to be systems and habits. One of my favorite authors, James Clear, says it best. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. In other words, your shiny goal of landing that dream job is only as good as the daily actions you take to get there. So build a system for yourself. For example, every day I will code for an hour on a project or a coding challenge. I will reach out to one person in the industry or post something tech related to on LinkedIn. I will apply to 1 or 2 jobs or internships. That's just a sample system, right? Yours can vary. The key here is to be consistent and to make a habit out of it. So these little actions, they can compound over time. It's like going to the gym. One workout will not show you any forms of results, even if you spend 24 hours in the gym, but 100 may, right? 100 workouts may show some results. Make learning and job hunting a habit, not a one-time sprint. Personally, I found that treating my job search and skill growth like a job itself, I found that it pays off really well. I set a routine. So mornings will be for maybe practicing coding and learning a new concept. Like one week I went into a new front-end framework. Another week I explored new cloud services. Afternoons are for networking or content creation. I would write blog posts about things that I've learned. This doubled as learning and putting myself out there to get people to know my progress, to build in public. And then the final part will be time for application and for improving my resume or portfolio. Was it easy? No, it was not. It felt like training for a marathon some days, but it kept moving me forward because I knew if I kept doing this, I kept grinding this day in, day out, I will eventually get to where I wanted to go, and eventually opportunities will start coming. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same for you. So if you keep doing this, your future self will definitely thank you for the habits that you start now today. So here's a truth that I learned a bit later than I like to admit. You can do it alone, but it's going to be 10 times faster if you don't do it alone. Yes, even if coding feels like a solo activity at times, your career is actually a team sport. Remember my story where I partnered up with a CTO for my startup? So one reason we succeeded is because we combined our strengths. I had just enough coding knowledge to understand product, and I had a knack for business, which is the selling and the business development side of things and the marketing side of things. And he had a very deep technical expertise on building full stack scalable software application in production, right? So this echoes something my role model entrepreneur Naval Ravikant famously said: learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Between us, we covered both. Now, you might not start a company right out of the gate, but the principle stands. Cultivate both your tech skills and your people skills. Maybe you're stronger in one, so work on the other, right? Start by finding your tribe. These could be former bootcamp classmates, folks from a local tech meetup, an online forum, an open source community. One out of my learning journey, one of my best things that I did was joining a developer meetup in my city. I was the most junior guy, surrounded by all the the pros who has been coding for years, and it was really intimidating, sure, but it was incredibly inspiring. Simply being around them and hearing their war stories of bug battles and production launches, they kept me motivated. And these are also the kind of times where you get to meet a broad range of different types of people, not just your software developers. You meet product managers, you meet SaaS entrepreneurs, AI developers. You get to meet so many different types of people here that you get to also get ideas or glimpses on which path you want to go in the very broad world of technology. So one of my past coding bootcamp graduate wrote, you need other coders and job seekers to keep you motivated and to sharpen your blind spots. And that's so true. When you hit a wall, and you will at most times, right? Sometimes having buddies in the same boat can keep you sane and help you push through. Plus networking and referrals can lead to jobs. Many jobs are not even posted publicly. They're filled via word of mouth, by casually mentioning that you're looking, or by showing up consistently in a community and by adding value, like answering questions on Discord or contributing on GitHub, or adding value, creating content on LinkedIn. You put yourself on the radar for opportunities. Networking isn't about cheesy business card swaps or spammy LinkedIn ads. It's about genuine relationships. Reach out to engineers or managers for coffee. Virtual coffee works too, yeah? Ask them about their work, their company, any advice they have. You'll be surprised. Lots of experienced folks are happy to help a newcomer because they remember being a junior once. So I've learned invaluable lessons from mentors or even peers just by chatting and asking questions. Just put your ego aside, right? So remember, stone polishes stone in this industry. By interacting with others, you will polish your own skills and knowledge. Now we've got to talk about the biggest elephant in the room. This year, the tech landscape is not the same as it was 5 years ago when I first started. We're in the era today of AI and automation. And you might be wondering, did I just train for a career that AI will replace? It's a valid concern. Every week, there's a headline about AI coding tools or some job being automated. And as a new graduate, I had a flash of fear the first time I saw GitHub Copilot write code by itself too, right? But here's the nuance. Tools like AI are just tools. They still need capable humans to guide them to build the things that use them. In fact, a recent survey of tech employers found that only 13% of them expect AI to eliminate the majority of roles at their company, and about 80% of tech managers believe most jobs will not be overtaken by AI. Rather, many jobs will evolve to include AI collaboration. Companies know that they will still need to hire developers who can interface with AI and construct what it does. So what does this mean for you? It means that your value is safe if you keep growing. The worst thing you can do is become complacent and stop learning after graduation. The best thing you can do is to embrace learning as a lifelong habit, right? Historian and author Yuval Noah Harari, he's pointed out that in the 21st century, people will have to retrain and reinvent themselves repeatedly as technology evolves. Whether it's coding or marketing or design, whatever it may be, the old model of learn once and work forever is dead, right? It's no longer here. This might sound intimidating and scary, but it's actually liberating. You are not expected to know everything forever now. You are expected to continuously adapt. If a new JavaScript framework comes out, play with it. If AI tools can speed up development, incorporate them into your workflow. Being the developer who's skilled with AI assistance will itself be a selling point. Trust me, because I've seen people, time and time again, people get hired just because they are aware and they know how to use AI in their day-to-day workflows. In short, actively become a learning machine, coding or not, right? Charlie Munger, billionaire investor and a personal hero of mine, said that he's seen plenty of ordinary folks beat out the geniuses simply by continuously learning and by improving, going to bed each night a bit wiser than they woke up that day. That learning machine mindset is gold in the tech world because tech doesn't stand still, and neither should you. To make this really more concrete, say, for example, you've learned React.js or Vue.js in a bootcamp like I did, right? By the time you graduate, maybe React or Svelte could be the new thing that's hot. Don't get upset, right? That your knowledge might not be on the cutting edge. Just keep learning. It's a standard. At some point, some of the things that you've learned will not be the cutting edge anymore, and you got to just keep having the fundamentals and foundational skills to keep learning fast and fast and fast. The good news is your foundational skills with HTML, JavaScript, understanding of components, they all carry over. New technology is usually variations on a theme. If you've built a solid base and foundation, picking up new libraries or languages becomes easier each time. The specific tools will change, but your ability to learn tools will only grow if you keep at it. And since we're talking about this year's context, yes, AI is part of your toolkit today. As a fresh graduate, you actually have an advantage. You can be an early adopter, play with ChatGPT or Copilot or Cursor to help you code, but also push yourself to code without them to ensure that you truly grasp what's happening. Some employers might even ask about these tools in interviews. I've heard of candidates being asked if they've used GitHub Copilot before. Show that you're aware of them. Maybe share a story about how you use AI to solve a problem faster, but also emphasize that you actually understand the problem. You actually think about the solutions and not just copy paste them. That balance will make you stand out so much more as a forward-thinking yet grounded candidate. The transition from student to professional can feel like being tossed in the deep end. One minute you have a structured syllabus or curriculum, the next minute you're in a vast ocean of possibilities and maybe uncertainties. But that's also the beauty of it. You now have the freedom to carve your own path in tech. Maybe you land a junior developer role at a startup and get to wear many hats, which is a fantastic learning opportunity, by the way. Maybe you will join a big company's graduate program and find a mentor there. Or who knows, you might even start a little side business that grows into something bigger. When I finished my learning and decided to build Sigma School, a lot of people probably thought I was crazy. Why not just take a safe job? Right? They asked, but I just had this itch, create and to teach and to build, right? Fast forward a few years, I'm running a profitable education business with a lean, strong, healthy team. And I've started an AI-driven HR tech startup on the side. I was able to do all these because I didn't stop at what the formal education taught me. I kept on learning about marketing and then sales and then management and then people and culture and design and so much more. And I kept coding enough to understand the tech that we built. Even though I'm not the best coder today, I still hit walls all the time. I still feel like I'm not ready sometimes, but I've learned to get comfortable with being slightly uncomfortable, always at the cutting edge and always growing. So for you, the fresh bootcamp graduate or CS graduate, whatever it is, you've done your learning journey and now you're getting on the job search. And if you're watching this, here's what I want you to take away is always stay curious, always stay proactive, and always stay humble. Use first principles when in doubt. Go back to what problem am I solving? And what's the simplest way to solve it? Don't just chase job titles, focus on building value and skills. And the titles, they will eventually catch up. In a world where everyone's being fed and driven by quick dopamine hits, you focus on the core first principles and the foundational values that you're bringing to the table. They will not go wrong. Always celebrate your small wins. You solved the bug, you completed a project, you made a new connection. These are all stepping stones for the big win, which is maybe you getting a job offer or you successfully launching a new business. And remember, the industry is not zero sum. Your mindset should be one of growth and collaboration, not competition and fear. There's plenty of room in tech for those who are willing to learn and contribute. In summary, and I say this as much to myself as to you, graduating was the end of chapter 1. Now is chapter 2. Chapter 2 is where the real plot develops. Your career, your personal growth, your impact to the world. And it's okay if you don't have every detail of the story figured out. You have the pen in your hand. Write your next chapter through actions. Keep coding, keep connecting, keep building, keep learning, and never give up. And before long, you will look back and you will realize that that uncertain newbie that you once were just a few months ago have grown into at least a slightly more confident entry-level developer who's actually getting paid to do this job, right? And maybe even a mentor for the next generation, right? So bootcamp's over, your learning experience is over. Now is where the real adventure begins. Good luck, and I'm rooting for you, okay? See ya.